Da 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 da. Hi. Hi everybody. Give me a minute just to kind of get comfy. All right, hopefully you're comfy. This is going to be video 870, and because I don't really necessarily know if I'm going to have a final destination where this goes, but I was watching PBS NewsHour. It's what I watch every day when I come home, and at night for news. And they had an article. They had a guest. The story was about uh, the effect of the school year in Florida, and they invited two students to come in and talk about kind of what was going on and how they felt, and something that the kids, the two young folk, uh, they talked about how they felt that there was always, and I guess before I get too far, my voice is going to be off because I still have congestion, kind of like right now. And so if it gets really bad, I'm going to pause the video and clear my throat, like right now. All right. Hopefully that's better. Uh, anyway, still working on that. But anyway, so how does the boys, the two, excuse me, the two young adults, talked about how there was always an element at their school of kids who abused other kids, bullies. There's always an element of we don't like you, from anybody. And they said that what they found was that these bullies, for lack of a better word, so I'm going to call them garbage people, that instead of just being mean and nasty people on their own, now they have the fuel, the fire of the state telling gay kids they're wrong, they're bad, they don't belong, blah, blah, blah. And one of the kids said, yeah, even they were following him around telling him, you should just go kill yourself. Okay? So this abuse, for lack of a better word, it's being justified by this don't say gay stuff, okay? Which is probably an unintended consequence, but I kind of feel like some people, maybe that's up for debate, but um, anyway, it kind of got me thinking. Sorry, my voice is going to go up now. It kind of got me thinking about my experience because I grew up in Florida and kind of made me sad in that I feel like we are um, we're limited by how old we are. We're limited by the age that we started to transition. And I guess this comes into sort of a physical thing, how we look, our appearance, the results that we're going to get, okay, from hormones, okay, but also from a social point of view, a social transition. And in my case, I went through puberty. I was through my 20s, even though I did try to transition in my 20s, it didn't work out. So then I went through my young adulthood, kind of middle adulthood now. And so, try as I might, okay, there are certain things about me physically that I am just never, I mean, there's just no way that I'm going to be um, as close to a cis woman as I want to be, okay? I like to think that I'm mature enough that I can accept it. But no amount of surgery, I mean, I could have, let's say I had all the money in the world and I had the best surgeons in the world and I had the ability to have as much surgery as I wanted to do and totally mess with my body. There's just some things that I just will not be able to do, you know. And you can say, well, but women come in all shapes and sizes, and there's cis girls, cis women who don't like the way they look, blah, 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 blah. That's just life. And you're absolutely right. But I'm just saying it is something that it's like a curve, that the older I am, when I started, just the distance is, it goes up, and there's this ever increasing gap between what is possible, and what could be possible. Okay? And we have the ability now in 2020, okay, in theory, there are young transgender children, transgender boys and transgender girls, with parents that are amazing, okay, and the parents comes to the realization, you know what, my child is not happy, and my child's happiness is more important than anything else in the world. And they are willing to basically, these parents, these super parents, they're super, are going to go through heaven and hell to enable as much as possible for their children, okay? And so for that child, the the what is rise over run? What is that for a curve? Slope. The slope of that curve, okay, or I guess it's a line, but let's say it has a curve to it, is going to be less, so again, that gap between, let's say, a young transgender child who's able to get counseling and therapy. They have a counselor when they're in elementary school, middle school, so they have access to mental health. Okay, so their parents are going to be trained and going to be aware of everything. The child is going to be made of things. Let's say there's a support group. Child is going to have community, blah, 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 blah. This is an ideal situation, okay? Humor me for the minute. And then following the WPATH standards of care, whether they get on some sort of blockers or something to prevent puberty, and the choices that they make for themselves, okay? Um, they do blockers and they decide, I'm going to change what I can. They're going to socially transition, maybe. Okay, they're going to socially transition, and in middle school, they're going to be as much as they want to be a boy or a girl or non binary as they want. Okay? And then they continue and they decide what they want to do. They make up their own mind with their parents and doctors and counselors and everything. And they decide, hey, I'm going to have whatever, okay, depending on where they're going and what they want. Whether it's top surgery or, whatever they want to do as an adult or whatever's possible and legal at that time, okay, acceptable by the standards of care and doctors and, what the experts think is the right thing to do. And they become a young person, a young adult, as much as possible, as close as they possibly can be to that cis trajectory, male, female, non-binary. Okay, and as things go on, maybe they have access to gender reconstructive surgery or gender affirming surgery, whatever you want to call it, and they live as best they can for the rest of their lives. And in a society, let's say, that is supportive, you know, again, that gap between where they are and the cis equivalent, okay, what life would be like if they were cis, is going to be smaller than my life, okay, maybe even yours. But there's still going to be a gap, okay, only because there's just some things we cannot, whether ethically or, you know, beyond, for greater minds than my own, okay. But It is it is making the best of a bad situation. Okay, it's making lemonade out of the lemons. It's dealing the best you can with the cards you're dealt. Pick your own cliche, that's what fits. Now, that said, there is a bit of a realization, and as I was watching this and I was thinking about the two children and the struggle that they had ahead of them, because our society is not yet in that what I just described, where you're going to get the medical care, you're going to get the health care, you're going to get the support. When you get out of school, you go to college or you don't, or join the service, whatever you're going to do with your life, we are not at that ideal. By definition, it's an ideal. We're not going to, it's what we want to strive towards, okay? But there's going to be that gap. Excuse me. And so I think for me, I found myself getting kind of sad, and not like a pity party sad, okay? Not like poor me, but just the realization that no matter what I do, and as best as my situation is, I will never reach my goal. Okay, and you say, well, but isn't everyone's goal different? Well, yeah, we are all different. Okay, and this isn't a Don Quixote type thing, reaching for the unreachable star. Okay, this is, I will always feel less than my potential because of some of the things that's happened to me over my life. And that's, you could say that to anybody, not necessarily related to trans stuff. Someone who, a cis person who had a, college scholarship and something happened and they lost it. And they'll never have the money to go back to school. Things happened and doesn't matter. You don't necessarily have to be trans related, okay? Something had happened with one of our parents, da 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 da. Circumstance, variables, okay, that kind of a thing. But it just kind of it made me sad, um, and somewhat of a pity party for myself because I have to realize that things will never, I will never be where I want to be. And as part of being a human being, I will always compare myself to other people and to cis women in my age category. Okay? And that's just me being a human being, I think. Yes, I have the ability to say, oh, well, isn't that the way it is for everybody, cis or not? I can walk through my building at work and there are women, excuse me, there are women who, you know, you spectrum of women, tall, short, thin, skinny, thick, you know, fat. Um, and I feel like to a degree I'm judging myself. And obviously I'm my worst critic. Um, I am happy that I have attained where I'm at, okay? And there's definitely room for improvement. If I wanted to do something else, I could, you know. And I would hate to be someone, you know, like the kids who are being bullied and they have the state now, unfortunately, bullying and providing ammunition and reasons to hate children. I mean, I feel bad for them. And counterbalanced all of that, while I realize there are limitations for me, I'm very happy that the next generation, hopefully, knock on wood, has it better. You know, these two kids tonight, despite their feeling persecuted, I mean, all of that, they are 17, 16, 17 years old, and unlike the world that I grew up in, um, there is an LGBTQ club, okay? There is the internet. There are these resources where maybe I felt somewhat like I was alone. I was the only person in the world, and da 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 da, because I didn't have that connection. We didn't have the internet. We didn't, da 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 da. Okay. So I think they have a better thing, but they're still going to have some drawbacks, you know. And for like a transgender person in their 30s or their 20s, their results on hormones are going to be way better than mine. But in the same respect, someone who is 4, 5, and 6, who has supportive parents, again, every generation going forward, the one behind it, in theory, has greater potential to reduce that gap, you know, between what is possible, you know, and what happens, in theory. Now, what makes me sad, which got me crying after watching the episode, was that there are people who um, are actively trying to widen that gap. You know, this is like the equivalent of someone who is sabotaging something. Um, One of the Klan mom, Marjorie Taylor Greene, introduced a bill this week to destroy children, transgender children, having access to care. Okay, we're talking mental health and some physical, some chemical down the road. But she doesn't even want it to be talked about. We talk about don't say gay, but this would outlaw if a child said to their parents, mommy and daddy, I think I'm blah, 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 blah. What she is proposing would prevent that child from getting help. It would prevent those parents from getting counseling so that they could help their child. And to me, that is just like evil. I can only imagine, not my parents, but an ideal set of parents who's supportive of their child. And, again, these parents they're fighting for their kids. They want their kids to be happy. Okay, what parent does not want their child to be happy? And here you have some cranky bitch trying to fuck up your life. You know what I mean? And so, this is to me, this is like the equivalent of someone in the 1950s or 60s. The Klan burning crosses on people's yards to make them feel bad or to make the situation worse, to agitate it, okay? To widen that gap. You know what I mean? And to me, I mean, I get mad, but I try to. It makes me sad because the situation is there where again the transgender youth right now, there is a way forward for them that I didn't have, okay, which sour grapes for me, but I'm so happy that they have it or they could have it. And what can I do as an adult who votes? What can I do to counteract that negativity, you know? And that's where I can volunteer and get active in my local government, okay, da da da, which I've done. I'm volunteering for the local guy, our local guy who's LGBT friendly, who has a chance of being like the first Democrat in this county in like 50 or 60 years, okay? So, I mean, or this district, excuse me. So I am doing something about it. But it's just, it made me so upset because these garbage people, um, they're trying to like sabotage. They want to make things worse. I mean, fuck. Some of them claim to be Christians, and Judas turned Jesus in and felt bad about it. He killed himself, and here they are going, ha 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 ha. What can I do to make your life miserable? And they get off on it. And then they say, oh, I'm such a good Christian, you know. But anyway, I don't, like I said, I'm angry, but I'm sad. You know what I mean? And it puts my life somewhat in a bit of a perspective. And I think for all of us, we want to make the next person's experience better. You know, there's a saying about the person who plants the seed knowing that they'll never enjoy the shade of the tree. I want the future to be better. I want it to be better for the kids. And what do you do? You know, violence begets violence, evil begets evil. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King said the only way to combat it is with love. Love, education, understanding. Again, I think there are things we're doing, and I've said this before too, like with my daughter, Gen Z, I guess. You know, when these kids can vote, I mean, the old people in Congress and the state, I live in Indiana. I mean, these dinosaurs, I mean, eventually they're going to get voted out or they're going to die of natural causes. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, I don't know. It just, like I said, I get sad. I just, it just, I hate to think of these kids feeling so bad. And they don't have to, you know? The, um, the counseling is available. The mental health is there. But you have people that are like, no, deny them care, deny them access. This is like the plane is going down and the masks drop and people are putting them on, and here these other people are like ripping out the masks. Oh no, you don't get one. You know what I mean? I mean, it's deliberately, it's like letting the air out of their tires. It's sabotage. You know what I mean? It's an evil act. And it's like, is it really just a matter of time? Is it really just a matter of enough time has to pass and the dinosaurs have to be extinct, and the more people that are educated, and um, like Saturday Night Live is going to have a non-binary cast member. Okay, starts in October. Um, the first non-binary cast member. I mean, change is coming. Change is here, and that's probably why you have the Klan moms out there freaking out. And this is a cool story. The person said, I think they were non-binary. It was a I'm gonna say a young man, they them theirs, but He was beautiful, and the dress he wore was just beautiful. Okay, this young person, and if I got all the pronouns wrong, I'm sorry, but and he said something about he said, I was initially angry, I was initially upset. He said, but he said I was speaking at a rally in Orlando a couple weeks ago. He said, and I was walking out, and he said there was a woman who was protesting. You know how in Pride, usually out front, you have like three people, Bible thumpers and speakers, and what these people are doing is a sin, da da da. Um, anyway, this woman, they said, she saw him, and he did refer to himself as him, so I guess that's a clue. But she said, this woman saw me in my dress, the dress I was wearing, and she immediately fell to her knees and started to pray for me. He said, and she was upset. She was visibly shaken. She was crying. She was trembling. He said, and so as I walked away, he said, I could appreciate that she wanted the best for me as she thought fit. He said, but she is the one who had the problem. He said, and she is the one who brought this resentment and anger and shame and guilt, trying to project it on me, he said. But she is the one who had it, and she did it to herself. And she is making herself miserable over something that she has no control over. And I think that's kind of a valuable, it's a very mature thing for a 16 or 17-year-old person, but I think for us adults too. It is, yes, it's a shame that we have people who um, they look at a book and they read a chapter and they're like, I'm you, okay, and it's terrible that they're trying to control our lives, but they are the ones who have the anger and being upset and the shame and the guilt, okay? They're the ones who are doing this to themselves, and that's how they choose to live their lives. And I think it's very mature of us to have compassion for them, you know, almost to have pity on them. They are making their own lives miserable. Now, the difference is perhaps on voting day, they may vote for a candidate who spouts hate. That's unfortunate, but that's their right in the same way that we have the right to vote for the other candidate who's going to support us. And the way things are going, I mean, it's something like 60 to 70% now. Okay, as far as people that are supportive of LGBTQ rights and whatnot. I mean, seriously, if not 2024, maybe 2028. Definitely by 2032, I'm going to say. I'm going to be very optimistic. You know what I mean? This whole idea of you're always going to, it's like the kid said at the school, there was always an element of someone who hated them for being gay. But, I guess the closest analogy I can think of is racial. We have interracial marriage now. And I can remember growing up, people saying, black people and white people dating together. I mean, just totally. But we look at it now and we're like, how stupid was that? And what did it take? It took interracial babies, right? It took babies being interracial. And I think that's where the trans children today, you know, um, every time the people that kind of hate talk about trans women, trans girls, biological males in sports, they show a picture of someone like me, okay, compared to a little sweet 16 girl, okay? But that's an old stereotype, okay? What about the transgender girl who started blockers when she was 6, 7, and 8 and took hormones? And she has, again, that gap between what is and what could be is, is getting narrower to the point that you have biodiversity in cis girls that are above and below that. You can't separate them based off of appearance. Okay? You won't be able to in 10 or so many years. I mean, seriously. Look at Jazz Jennings. You know what I mean? So I mean change is coming. I mean you cannot steer a train, okay? You can only speed it up or slow it down. And we know where the tracks are going. And yes, we do have people that are like putting on the brakes and probably trying to blow up the tracks. But if we wait long enough, we will get there. It probably won't be in my lifetime. It may not be in my daughter's lifetime. Um, we can hope, you know. But anyway, so that's kind of my video for tonight. It's went kind of long, but kind of had some emotional up and down. Some other things that are kind of relationship related. Me meeting somebody, and they're gonna have to accept me for who I am, which would have been anyway. So, um, that's the way that is with people anyway. Their quirks and um, the little things about them that just add to the pile. You know what I mean? All right. Well, that's it. So I will sign off, and I wish you the best of luck in becoming your authentic self as you define it. Till next time. Bye bye. Good luck.